We will eliminate the "and" to get us going. We will do baseball here, and we will have a guest on in a sec. Larry Lucchino, very unheralded, at least from a public standpoint, not in the industry standpoint, who was the CEO of the Red Sox, San Diego, the Orioles, long time ago, rings from all sorts of sports. He was on the Washington Redskins, got a championship, a Super Bowl ring back in the early 80s, got a World Series ring with the Orioles, Red Sox, part of 3 championships, president and CEO, had a lot to do with the ballpark building at Petco in San Diego, and of course Camden Yards, very first of its kind in Baltimore, sort of the mentor to Theo Epstein right out of the gate. That's, Theo's one of the all-time great GMs going to the Hall of Fame. Let's not forget that. He's in a couple of Hall of Fames himself with the Padres and, of course, the Red Sox. 3 titles. Larry Lucchino, very, very unheralded, a very instrumental figure in sports, ballpark construction, trade orchestration, teams that won. There's a lot to say. Remember the Padres in 96, 98. He was the president and CEO at the time in San Diego. So a lot of unbelievable accomplishments, and he passed away at the age of 78 in the last, half a day or so. We will talk to Sean McAdam, who covers the Red Sox well. We'll do that in a little bit. So we want to make sure we start the show with that here. It just came down about 10, 15 minutes ago that I saw with Larry Lucchino. All right, so we switch our attention now to baseball as far as last night is concerned with what's going on. First off, let's start with the Astros and Ronel Blanco. What a stretch he's had. Made the team in spring training late. He had only made 8 starts in his career prior to last night. Made the ball club last Tuesday, walking off the mound there in West Palm Beach. And he gets to start yesterday because of all the injuries. Astro rotation, Urquidy out, of course, Garcia out of there, and not to mention Verlander. He makes the start against Toronto. The Blue Jays up and down, and the Astros coming off a terrible series against the Yankees. Bullpen beleaguered, and he goes out there, he throws 105 pitches and throws a no-no against the very good offense. An inconsistent offense, but a very good offense in the Blue Jays. He walks Springer twice, but he throws 105. Give a spotter a lot of credit for letting him go all the way. Had a great slider in this ball game. Slider fastball combination, and again at 30 years of age, he just had a child, a daughter, and he goes out there and he mows down the Blue Jays in a game that Houston, I know it sounds crazy, 5th game of the season, but with their 9-game losing streak at home and going back to last year, and the fact the Yankees walked in there and ripped their hearts out 4 straight days, the Astros get the job done. That takes away the bitterness of that Yankees series, and Blanco superb. So give him credit, 100%, 30 years of age, out of nowhere, and he pitches a no-hitter, only 2 walks, only a couple of plays late. Abreu dove to his right, made a play in that 9th inning, and Blanco pitches a no-hitter. And again, I give a spotter a lot of credit. Let him pitch 105 pitches in that spot. Very rarely does anybody allow any pitcher manager to do that, much less in July, but never in early October, so early April, I should say. Earliest no-hitter in the history of the sport. Yes, earliest no-hitter in the history of the sport. I think Bob Feller is the only one who threw a no-hitter on opening day. Earliest no-hitter in the history of the sport. That was in 36 for Feller. I believe it was 36. And, of course, great job by Blanco. So that's number one. And the big win for the Astros, I know it's April 1st. You don't go crazy, but they did have a rough weekend. So that's number one. Number two, I've watched a lot of the Yankees. You couldn't help not watch the last 5-6 days where I live. A wonderful performance against Houston. Soto, of course, has been superb. Volpe looks like he's a different kind of player. They're getting all sorts of contributions. The kid pitched very well last night off the Tommy John. I don't know why he took him out. Boone, 4 2/3. He was an out or so away from getting a win. I know he was on a pitch count, and he's coming off an injury, but let him get a W. Jeez, come on. My God. It takes him out of the game. He was sharp as heck. And then the Yankees, of course, did what they do offensively and beat the Diamondbacks out in Arizona. Their offense has been superb right now. They scored 5 runs. The Yankees has got it going. Their lineup is excellent. And LeMahieu in that lineup right now, and obviously they got a little bloop single by Cabrera, who's done a great job himself, filling in for LeMahieu at third base. Soto's always in the middle of things. He's taking millions of pitches. And the Yankees, you could just sense it. Last year, the very disappointing season, the big trade they made to get Soto in the off year. Soto with Judge 2-3 in that lineup. Torres leading off. You talk about the Dodgers at 1-2-3, and rightfully so. How about the Yankees at 1-2-3? I mean, that's as good as it gets with what they're doing. And the Yankees right now, they're going to beat. I think they're going to beat the Diamondbacks 2 more games. They got a lot of juice. They got a lot of momentum. They feel very good about themselves. They have won 5-0. It's only the third or fourth time in the Yankee history that they've won 5 straight games. Even the '98 team didn't do that. The '98 team struggled out of the gate. Even the '98 team didn't do that. None of those Tory championship teams did that. It's been a long time since the Yankees season 5-0 in the American League East, and you just like the feel of them. You like that. I've been doing this now a couple days in a row. I've been paying attention. I'm on top of it, and the Yankees are going to have a big year. I mean, they really are going to have a big year. Soto is he loves it here. He's good in the big stage. He's going to love Yankee Stadium with that swing. Austin Wells had a big game last night. He's going to hit 20 homers. The catcher at Yankee Stadium with that swing of his. I mean, the Yankees are good. I mean, the Yankees and Orioles got a chance to be a hell of a race in the AL East. I mean, I don't know about the Red Sox, Tampa, or the whether the Toronto can hang around. That looks like a hell of a race between Yankees and Orioles. I think that might be a 1-2 deal in the American League East. So that's number one. And I'll tell you about the Mets, and I've been on this theme too. They're trying to split the needle, and it's very difficult. Yes, we're competitive. Yes, we have a chance. Yes, we have an opportunity to make the playoffs with the 6 teams in both leagues. Why not us win 83, 84 games? We think we can do that. I don't see it. I think the Mets are going to have a long year. Their offense is going to hit eventually. J.D. Martinez will return. I understand that. They can say everything they want about, well, if you lose 4 in a row now, what difference does it make if you lose it in June? When you start the season 0-4, it sets a terrible tone all year long. If you lose 3-4 games in a row in July, June, August, you can overcome that. To start the season winless for the first 4 or 5 days, terrible weather, the crowd booed them off the field in the 10th inning. That is where it gets dicey, and the feeling of the franchise feels bad. That's the difference between losing 4 in a row to start the year and losing 4 in a row in the middle of the year. There's a huge difference. 4 in a row, middle of the year, you've established a tempo, a foundation of what your team is about. You do it right out of the gate, and all of a sudden everybody, and especially in New York City, and then the Yankees 6 miles away are on fire. I mean, don't tell me the Yankees don't pay attention, the Mets don't pay attention to that, because they do, because the fans do. The Met fan does. And then the Braves are playing well. I mean, I got a bad feeling about the Mets. Their pitching is terrible. Last night, notwithstanding, Manaea did a nice job, pitched very well. But their pitching, I don't love at all. They haven't hit at all. This Alonso thing with this free agency is going to loom. McNeil's been a disaster. The whole thing over the weekend with Hoskins was stupid. The pitcher thrown behind Hoskins' back was asinine in the 8th inning on Saturday after Hoskins was Babe Ruth earlier in the game, and now the Mets throw behind his back. Mendoza looks a little overwhelmed. I have some issues, and managers can't appeal. He had a 1-game suspension. Be very careful about the Mets, and it's not like they're losing to the Dodgers and the Braves. They're playing the Brewers and the Tigers. I mean, let's take it easy. I know they're competitive, but geez, and they have been a mess, and so I'd be very, very concerned about the Mets right now as far as the NL East. And remember, the Braves and Phillies are good teams. I'd be a little concerned about Harper. Speaking of the Phillies, he has not done anything, and he had a terrible spring training. A lot of people think he might have a bad back. I'd be a little worried about Harper here out of the gate. He's got some issues, and the Phillies haven't played well. That's neither here nor there. The Mets are what concerns me. And then, of course, the Pirates playing very well. Good win yesterday. They've won 5 in a row, all on the road. Again, lightweights. They're beating the Marlins, the Nationals. They're not beating big teams. But the Pirates, they're not a team that's going to sit there and turn their nose up against any major league team. Anytime the Pirates get a win, it's a good deal. I don't care who they're playing, even Oakland. And so the Pittsburgh Pirates at 5-0, that's an excellent job for them. We give them a little credit. And again, Alfred mentioned Detroit. Their bullpen's been lights out. They have not been scored upon. Again, the White Sox and Mets, they're not playing the heavyweights in the American League, but the Tigers, who haven't had a lot of success lately, even for Hinch, nice job for Detroit and on the road. So Pittsburgh and Detroit you like. The Yankees Yankees, I love. Blanco does a wonderful job, and I'd be very, very concerned about the Mets. I hate the look of it. I hate the vibe of it. I don't know what they're trying to do. Oh, we'll be in the pennant race, but, we're going to rebuild. That, to me, is very dicey. I'd be very worried about the Mets if I was a Met fan. I know the Met fan is worried about it. I talk to them all the time. They're very concerned. This could be a long year at Citi Field. Nobody's fault, but it could be a long year. That's where we begin. McAdam in a bit on Lucchino, and here is our pal Alana. She'll get us going. Ms. Rizzo, take it away. What do you have for me today?
I'm not certain that it's not anybody's fault in New York. I would be a little concerned right now with the start that they got off to, but it seems like when you're scuffling that bad early out of the gate, a seasoned manager like a Buck Showalter could kind of turn things around quickly before this turns into the 1988 Orioles where they lose 21 in a row. So, again, I wasn't really big on the managerial changes. Again, it's probably not all Carlos Mendoza's fault. I'm not suggesting that it is, but this is a team that spent a boatload of money, and they're off to a horrific start this year. They don't have the pitching. I mentioned that yesterday, and I agree, Sean Manaea pitched really well for them, but overall, the Mets don't have the pitching to be able to get things done. Now, as far as the Houston Astros are concerned, good for them, and Joe Espada needed that win, right? As a new manager in Houston, you get swept in the first series of the opening weekend, and Ronel Blanco took it upon himself to get the job done, and what a couple of weeks it has been for this kid, Chris. He welcomes in his second daughter, his second child, finds out that same day, that same afternoon, that he actually made the big league roster for the Houston Astros, and then goes out there and throws the first no-hitter of the 2024 season. No-hitters are rare and special, certainly not as special or rare as perfect games, but this was done against what can be a great offensive team. But the Toronto Blue Jays are so erratic. It's a hitter-friendly park, we get that, and the offense for the Astros really backed him up as far as that was concerned, but the Blue Jays are really an all-or-nothing offense. In the the 2 wins that the Blue Jays have had so far this season, Chris, they've averaged 8.5 runs. In the 3 losses that the Toronto Blue Jays have had so far this season, they've scored a run, and they've averaged a run per game. So it's feast or famine for the Toronto Blue Jays. I get that Bo Bichette's not fully healthy. He's been out of the last 2 games with that neck injury, but the window of opportunity for the Blue Jays is closing with the services of Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and Bo Bichette. I think they're free agents in the next couple of years. So overall, this is a team that's hitting 184, which is second worst in the big leagues. Not to take anything away from Ronel Blanco's performance. What's crazy is what you alluded to earlier. In this day and age, when starters barely throw 5 innings, he threw a complete game. That's key. The calendar. Normally, pitchers pitch their first or second time through as far as the outing is concerned. They finally get to 85 or 100 pitches. He was allowed to go 105. And maybe Joe Espada's like, you know what? I'm going to do whatever it takes to win a game because we're 0-4 so far this season. But good for him. Congratulations to them. It's kind of like a throwback game, and you love to see it, Chris.
100% right. I'm with you. I love the fact that Espada let him pitch, and I think part of it was the bullpen. But what the heck? He's 30 years of age. Give him a chance. Good job, Alana. One note. Feller 40 was the no-hitter. I think it was against the White Sox. I had to double-check that. 30. It was the White Sox. 36. It was 40, not 36. My error there. All right, lots to still do. Larry Lucchino passed away, age of 78. Very unheralded and very successful. Sean McAdam, of course, does a super job. MassLive.com, supervising reporter, covers the Red Sox. He runs it. He's the boss, and he knows all things Red Sox and all things baseball. Sean, thank you. Wish you have it on a better note. I know you scrambled to do this today, so we appreciate. In a lot of ways, everybody in baseball knows, but public they do not know. He was a very instrumental person. Ballparks, franchises, Theo, very instrumental person in baseball the last 30, 40 years. Let's discuss that first. Go ahead.
Yeah, no question, Chris. He was a extremely consequential figure in Major League Baseball from the 1980s until just a few years ago when he effectively stopped his day-to-day involvement with the Red Sox. But hugely consequential, and you mentioned ballparks. He was one of the driving forces behind Oriole Park at Camden Yards, which is in many ways the most impactful ballpark in modern history because it ushered in that whole era of retro style with new amenities ballpark that became the blueprint for ballparks all over the country. And Oriole Park at Camden Yards was the first, and Larry was the driving force behind that. He also later contributed certainly to the construction of Petco Park, another fine ballpark in San Diego. And his impact on the Red Sox as a franchise for a period of about 13 or 14 years cannot be overstated. As the president and CEO, John Henry was the principal owner, remains the principal owner, Tom Werner the chairman. But for much of that period, Lucchino was in many ways the public face of the ownership and upper management construction of the Red Sox, and he could be a force of nature. He was hard driving, demanding. He was not an easy person to work for, as evidenced by the fact that Theo Epstein, for whom he served as a mentor and brought to Boston to become the youngest general manager in the history of the game, departed the team after 2005 in something of a power struggle with Lucchino, only to return a few months later. But Lucchino pushed people hard. That was his style, and he got the results, particularly in Boston. Here was a team that had gone 86 years without a title. Lucchino, Henry, and Warner arrive in 2002. 2 years later, they win. They win again in 07 and win again in 13. So there's no denying the sort of impact he had, not just on the game, but particularly the Red Sox as a franchise.
Let's do two things with Boston. First, the rebuild of Fenway Park. He has to get some credit for that, too. I know for a while there they were thinking about going somewhere else, but he did a wonderful job of making sure Fenway expanded properly, used all the footprints, added seats, monsters, this, that, and the other, seats above the left field, out in left field. He has to get some credit for that, too. Correct, Sean?
No question. He was the sort of the architect of the renovation, along with the great Janet Marie Smith, the famed baseball ballpark architect and designer, who was responsible for Oriole Park and so many other ballparks. Lucchino, Warner, and Henry, in purchasing the Red Sox and emerging as the victorious group in that bidding, had made it a staple of their bid to renovate and maintain Fenway. They said it was because that the ballpark was a beloved institution, and all of that is true, but in part it was also financially motivated. They were spending $700 million for the ballpark, the team, and inheriting some debt there, and knew that they were not going to get public assistance on a new ballpark construction in Boston at the time. So they focused on renovating Fenway, and they did a terrific job of that, expanding concourses and fan services, improving amenities, but also keeping the character of the ballpark the same. Fenway Park is in much better shape today in 2024, in large part due to Larry Lucchino, than it was, 25 years ago when that ownership group arrived in town.
All right. How about the trades, Sean? I know he brought Theo in as his GM. I mean, we know Larry, of course, as you said, behind the scenes CEO, business aspects of it, ballparks, everything else. I mean, is he a guy that made some of these trades with Theo? Did he approve everything? Did he leave the baseball operations to the baseball office? How about that?
Well, I think that I think that was at the heart sometimes of the conflict between Lucchino and Epstein, in that as a president and CEO of the team, Lucchino sought to be involved in some of the baseball decisions, and Epstein wanted more autonomy, didn't want the pushback on the business end, wanted to be able to operate in his own sphere. And Lucchino was nothing if not involved. So there was always that push and pull there. I think Larry emerged as a more dominant figure after 2005, when Epstein left the team for a number of months. He was certainly more involved there. That was the year that they traded for Josh Beckett and Mike Lowell, which was a huge part of the 2007 championship run. So he had his hands in just about everything, which sometimes rubbed people the wrong way, but that was his nature. He wanted a say. He wanted to make sure he knew what was going on in every aspect of the organization, and he was going to do so whether it rankled people or not.
know I had him on radio. That's how I know this. He wasn't very pleased with the Shaughnessy, a wonderful writer, and the Francona book, because that made the Red Sox hierarchy look bad when Terry left. And I know Larry wasn't very pleased about that. Tell me about that friction. What can you tell me there? Go ahead.
Yeah, Terry Francona left the team in 2000 after a just brutal collapse in September of 2011 when they led the wild card race going into September, and on the very final night of the season were eliminated as they lost to the Orioles and the Rays beat the Yankees. That put the Red Sox on the sideline, and within days, Terry Francona was out. There was the feeling that the Red Sox had kind of slimed Francona on his way out the door. There were leaks from upper management and ownership about things that had gone on in Francona's personal life that Francona took exception to. And I don't know that relationship ever healed. And frankly, I don't think it's a great relation. It was a great relationship after that between Lucchino and Theo Epstein. To a certain degree, Theo had mended fences and has mended fences with John Henry and Tom Warner, and is in fact now part of the club again as a limited partner and involved in Fenway Sports Group. But some of the wounds that came about from Francona's departure and later Epstein's were never fully put back together, and there were some hard feelings that lasted a long time. And then in 2015, Lucchino was effectively muscled out of his job as president and CEO. He remained president and CEO emeritus of Fenway Sports Group, and of course was a partner and owner of now the Worcester Red Sox. That was another highly controversial move on Lucchino's part. He was, despite years of trying, unable to secure financing for a new ballpark in Rhode Island, and ultimately moved the team across state lines to Worcester, Massachusetts, where they reside now, and oversaw the construction of Polar Park. But that was an also controversial move on Lucchino's part.
Well, here's the bottom line. And you're right. You're in baseball for that long. You're going to do some things that, people are not going to like, and you're not going to be 100% all the time. Here's the bottom line. He gets the credit for the ballparks, especially Camden Yards, because, as you said, it was the first one. The Chicago Park came about 6 months earlier, and what a difference that is. That's number one. And number two, he brings Lucchino to Boston. Epstein to Boston, which is a home run. You can't argue that. And number three, whether he's involved in, David Ortiz coming, whatever the case, he is the CEO when they win 3 championships. Yep. So no matter how you handle it, that's a hell of a resume, is it not?
It certainly is. You cannot tell the story of the Boston Red Sox in the 21st century without devoting a large part of that story to Larry Lucchino. And he'll be remembered as a guy who did not take no for an answer, who was demanding and hard charging all the time. My favorite Larry story comes on the morning of the 2004 championship parade, days after the Red Sox won the World Series. And of course, they're having this huge parade to celebrate with the duck boats and everything throughout Boston. And he goes into Terry Francona's office and tells Francona that he wants him to get the players to put their uniform tops on to go on the parade. And Francona says, no, I'm not doing that. The players were still half hung over from a couple of days ago and had been celebrating nonstop. And it was everything they could do to get them all together to get on these duck boats and ride through Boston. Francona refuses to get them all in uniform. And Lucchino is screaming at Francona in his office, can't you get these guys to do anything? Conveniently forgetting that in the previous few weeks, they had accomplished what no team in Boston had for 86 years. Or the ability to overcome a 3-0 deficit against the Yankees. But he was never satisfied, and that was part of his appeal.
Part of his greatness. Great job, Sean. Thank you for joining us here. I know I having a rough Red Sox, Seattle, a lot of travel. We appreciate it. Keep up the great work. Appreciate you coming on today.
My pleasure, Chris. Thank you.
The Detroit Tigers are off to some kind of run here in the 2024 season. 4-0 to get the season started. The only time since 2000 that they got off to a better start was in 2015 and back in 2006 when they went 5-0 and made it to the World Series. Kerry Carpenter is their home run hitting outfielder. He joins us now from the league office. Kerry, thanks so much for taking the time. What has it been like in that clubhouse, in that dugout at the beginning of the season when you guys are just on fire?
Man, even in spring training, it was a blast. And so adding winning in the regular season to that has been pretty amazing to be in the locker room with everybody. And all the guys love each other. So being in there and winning and having that confidence is pretty special.
What do you think it is about this group in particular? I was talking to your manager, AJ Hinch, about you in particular, but he said that there's just something special about this group as well. What is it?
It might be the chemistry that we all have. Like, I don't know if every team has that. I've only been with Detroit in my big league career, but this team, I mean, we legitimately just enjoy going to the field every day and being with each other and working with each other. And so I think that has something to do with it.
AJ said that you performed your way to the big leagues, that nothing has ever been given to you, that you had to hit your way to the show. How much pride do you take in what you've been able to accomplish, being, a later round draft pick by the Tigers, and here you are, a major leaguer?
It's such a blessing. He's right. I mean, I was a late round pick, but I didn't hit that well in college, so I got picked right where I should have been picked. And so I just knew I had to do something big in the minor leagues to even make it. And so I made a swing change and started hitting a lot of homers, hitting for average. So that happened, and here we are. And now we just go from here and try to win games up here.
All right, hitting for average, hitting for power. What was the swing change? Did you notice that something needed to change, or was there somebody that said, hey, try this, let's change up your stance a little bit, let's change things up?
My uncle has always kind of been on me about that, but one of my buddies, Jacob, and also, he's the one who, he literally told me to my face that your swing won't work in the big leagues, and I was like, okay, man. And he was like, I got a guy for you. And I ended up hitting with this guy, and that's the guy who changed my swing and kind of changed my career.
All right, you got a guy. Everybody needs a guy. What was it like for you when you got drafted, and then your first big league at bat, and just the emotions going through you, having been a guy that really needed to work his way to get here? Nothing came easy to you.
It was special. My major league debut was definitely overwhelming, and I think that showed. I went 0 for 4 with 3 strikeouts, and I was a little sped up in my head, but it was still a blast nonetheless with my family and my friends in the stands, and so I knew it wasn't going to be that bad the whole time, so I stayed confident and went from there.
And then your first hit comes off of our friend Liam Hendricks. Your family was in the stands. Do you even remember the emotions? Do you remember touching the bases?
I do. I feel so like I was locked in so much that my family probably enjoyed it way more than I did. At the time, I was like, oh my gosh, like we're down by 2 and I'm not going to get picked off here. Like that's the stuff that was going through my head at the time. And so it was fun. I do remember it though.
All right, Virginia Tech, Texas. Your wife, Lauren Burke, obviously now Lauren Carpenter, was a star softball player at the University of Texas. So hook 'em horns. Who's the better athlete, you or your wife?
She might be the better athlete. I might have her hitting, but I think she's the better athlete.
Do you guys play catch together? Do you have hitting drills together? How do you guys kind of work out together?
We'll do anything. We'll play football. We'll throw the football together. That was one of our first, actually. And then she'll throw me BP. She throws cutters. She throws curveballs. She throws everything. So we have a little bit of that going on, yeah.
All right. How'd you guys meet? It's a fun story when you have 2 people in a marriage that are such good athletes.
Right. I actually DM'd her on Instagram and invited her up to when we were playing the Rangers. I invited her because I figured she lived in Austin. And I was like, hey, I want to take you out. And she came up, and kind of the rest is history.
Wow, that could actually be really creepy or really sweet. You slid into her DMs, literally. Well, good for you guys. Congratulations on the wedding. I know you guys got married, 10 days before spring training. All right, let's look forward to this season a little bit. You guys have already won 3 games against your division rivals in the White Sox, and that's really where I think, Carrie, it's going to have to come from. I think you have to win the AL Central to make it into the postseason. What has been the focus for you guys going into this year?
Honestly, just playing clean baseball and doing what we know we can do. And we played really well against the AL Central last year, and for some reason didn't play as well against other divisions. And honestly, it's just taking that confidence and playing well against everybody else and knowing we can. Our pitching staff has to be one of the best in the league. It's incredible. We're confident every single day that they're going to give up. All we have to score is 1 run because they're so good. So it's just it's pretty incredible to be in this position with this team and having this kind of confidence in every single guy in the locker room.
Riley Green, you came up with him and Spencer Torkelson as well in the minor league system. And Green was saying, you know what, pay attention to this kid. I don't know that people realize how good he is. So he saw something in you maybe before the rest of us did. What is your relationship with those two guys like?
I love those guys. I met Riley at a pre-draft workout in 2019 in Lakeland, Florida. So we've known each other for probably the longest out of everybody. And I got to play with both of them in AA in 2021 and then obviously up here. And it's just really cool having the relationship with those guys and coming up with them and grinding through the minor leagues with them, going through the struggles, going through the highs and the lows. It helps our bond together. And so there's got to be something to be said for that. And that's one of the reasons why I love going to the field every day is I get to go hang out with them. I get to go work with them. I get to go pick their brains. It's pretty special.
Yeah, it's part of that chemistry that you were talking about earlier. How closely are you following Virginia Tech? They've made themselves into a nice baseball program, 21-5, I think, 11th as far as the rankings and the latest D1 poll. What do you think about the program that they're creating there? I know you played there in 2019 after transferring.
I haven't been keeping as close a watch as I should have, but I do know that they're a great program, and the coach there, John Sheff, has done such a great job, and he's done it everywhere he's been. So he did it at Maryland before he did it at Virginia Tech, and so we knew it was a matter of time that he was going to turn Virginia Tech into what it is now, and so it's pretty fun to see all their success that they're having.
All right, Carrie Carpenter, have a great rest of the season. Thanks so much for taking the time to be with us. Your Detroit Tigers off to a really good start, and you're performing well in the first 4 games. We appreciate your time.
Thank you so much. God bless.
All right, time to turn back time before we, or turn up the heat rather, before we turn back time. The Braves are 3-1, Chris, while the remainder of the NL East is a combined 2-15. Are the Braves on their way to back-to-back titles?
Absolutely, Alana, they sure are. Good question. The Braves lineup is tremendous. Sale pitched a good game. They're happy about that. Morton looked good yesterday. They got Fried and Strider top of the rotation. The Braves are a very good regular season team. They got a lot of scars in postseason play last couple years, which is what they're going to have to overcome. But if you're asking me right now, the Mets are bad. Washington and the Marlins are terrible. Washington is rebuilding. That leaves you the Phillies. The Phillies are a team that, they'll win their 88 games, but they play better in October than they do over the course of the year. Atlanta's going to run away. 100% good question. So I like the Braves.
Yeah, you said that yesterday, that the Phillies are more of an October team, Atlanta more of a regular season powerhouse. The Braves went wire to wire in 2023. The last time they started a day out of first place, Chris, was the morning of September 30th, 2022. Moving to the AL East, Craig Kimbrell was in for the save last night. Blue was saved with the Orioles before the Orioles actually walked it off. Can the Orioles win big, Chris, with Craig Kimbrell as their closer? Of course, Bautista out with the Tommy John surgery.
Well, remember, I don't worry about that too much. I didn't know why they did this. They gave him $13 million. I know Batista, they did it 1 year. I didn't quite get that. But remember, they'll get a closer or they'll get some help in their bullpen, middle of the year. How about getting Presley, who's a free agent from Houston, if Houston has a bad year and they want to unload him and get a prospect or two because they got Hader. They will find somebody, new ownership. They spend some money. They won't worry about free agency. They showed that with Burns. They're going to have to help that bullpen. They are not winning a championship. You're right, 100%. And I'm not trying to pick on them. I'm just being honest. You're not winning a championship, but that's some help in that bullpen. Kimball's not going to get that job done for you. They will need to fortify that at the deadline. It's a long way off. We'll live for 4 months, but they will have to get help in that bullpen. You're right, 100%.
Yeah, Cano's a really good back of the rotation guy, but they are missing a lot with Bautista out. And in fact, since the start of the 21 season, Chris, Craig Kimbrell has the worst save percentage in the major leagues for anybody with at least 70 opportunities. So he worries me a little bit. All right. Since through 5 games, the Red Sox starting pitchers have Major League Baseball's best 1.29 ERA. Are we overblowing the issues with the Red Sox rotation?
I know they've all gone 5 innings. They've done an excellent job. Listen, nice job. I got to see a lot more. They beat the A's last night, who have made 13 errors in 5 games. You know, they got a split against Seattle over the weekend. The one game they lost was 1-0. I got to see a little more. I mean, I'm not going to go crazy yet. I know that Cora really feels bullish on this rotation, and they got a good bullpen, but I got to see more than 5 games. Let's see how this goes. 30, 40 games against good hitting teams. Seattle's not a good hitting team. Let me see this down the road. But, you know, listen, good start. You take it. And so I'm not going to I'm not going to sneeze at it, but you and I both got to see a little more about that Red Sox rotation.
Well, no question. I mean, they traded away Chris Sale, but essentially everybody in the starting rotation is the same. They did a little bit by adding Lucas Giolito, and now because of injury, he's out for the year. So again, I think the Red Sox are getting off to a better start than we had anticipated, but it is still early. All right, coming up now.
Baseball-wise, on April 2nd, you know about Gil Hodges, passed away in spring training. The Met Hall of Famer, the great manager, and of course player. Reggie was traded. That's when Finley traded all the A's out of there. He went to the Orioles in 76 on the state, and Derek, you saw Alana highlight that, hit a home run against the Indians on opening day in his first major league game. They beat Cleveland. They made a great catch out in left field. But really, on this date in history, from a pop culture standpoint, believe it or not, the Fleetwood Mac album, which was released in February, was #1 on the Billboard charts. And this is the Rumors LP by Fleetwood Mac, that unbelievable band that had gotten together 2 or 3 years before that. Remember, the band was put together in 67 by John McVie and Mick Fleetwood. And then it added people, Kristen McVie there. But this album was sort of, you know, they were successful, but this went off the charts. This album sold 40 million. This is how big this album was. Unbelievable songs, all about breakups, because marital breakups with band members, the Southern California lifestyle, drenched in cocaine. I mean, there was a lot going on with this band in 1977. Unbelievable songs all over the place. It was ranked by Rolling Stone. You want to argue what number it should be? It's definitely a top 10 album. This was ranked as #7 all time by Rolling Stone. Think about that. Out of all the rock albums ever made, this is #7. I mean, that is pretty damn impressive, with Stevie Nicks and Christine McVie, who just passed away, and of course Mick Fleetwood and John McVie, and of course Lindsey Buckingham. Buckingham and Nicks had a very stormy relationship. They've been together a long time. They were together when they joined the band in the mid-70s. Rock and Roll Hall of Famers. There's Mick Fleetwood and Buckingham on the far right, McVie and Nicks, and of course John McVie. Just had #1 singles all the time. Remember, I was 17 years of age. Can you imagine a 17-year-old beach summer of 1977, and Rumors is out, and all those great songs with the unbelievable lead vocalists of Stevie Nicks. Oh my God, who is everybody's young boy's crush. Absolutely. And remember, this album is so significant. First off, all the #1s, we're going to play you Go Your Own Way in a minute. They had 3 different lead vocalists on this album. Most of the great albums, they don't have 3 different lead vocalists. They had 3 different lead vocalists on this album. Very versatile, and an unbelievable amount of singles. Clinton, of course, with Don't Stop. You got that going on, too, with his campaign in 93. You hear Go Your Own Way in the background. That was the first single. Dreams became #1 in the U.S. This album was very successful, of course, too, in Britain. It's one of the all-timers. It's perfect Southern California, 1977. That's all you need to know. And it is... And there's so much going on with the songwriting, with all the bands Again, malfunction with relationships breaking up all over the place. Oh, it's phenomenal. And this is a great song here too. So we wanted to do that for you a little bit with Fleetwood Mac. And I'm not the only one who loves Fleetwood Mac, and I lived it because I was 17, 18 years of age, bouncing around Jones Beach in Long Island. So was Alana, a little younger than me, but a big Fleetwood Mac fan too. Go ahead. Let me hear.
Yeah,
Take it away.
a lot younger than you. Let's be honest. The only time I've been to Jones Beach is when I got to see Blake Shelton, but I did get to see Fleetwood Mac in July of 2016. They performed, they kind of had gotten back together a little bit. They performed at the Dodgers Gala, and it was a atmosphere at Dodger Stadium, Chris, that it was maybe, 500, 600 people right there. It was incredibly intimate. They were all there. Vince Scully introduced them. It was an incredible show. But here's something for you, because I know you love history. Their song, I Don't Want to Know, was actually an afterthought to the Rumors album, because Stevie Nicks' Silver Springs was too long to fit on the LP. So she kind of didn't like that. She kind of said that it put a shadow on I Don't Want to Know because it was a little bit of an afterthought, but it ended up being one of their best songs. And Mick Fleetwood, of course, said it was the most important album that group had ever made, this Rumors album.
I play I Don't Want to Know leading off the 4 o'clock hour every day on Sirius XM. So I love the song. They remade the album, as you said. They put Silver Springs on it. One of the all-timers. I mean, you gotta be a little older to appreciate, but the songs still last. When you write a song 40 years ago, 50 years ago, and it still feels good when you hear it today, then you know that you got something that is iconic. And they don't have one song on the album that does that. They got 5 or 6. They have it. Okay. So we do a little pop culture with Fleetwood Mac today. Alana will be with us tomorrow. And of course, we'll be flying, of course, the next couple days after that, Thursday and Friday. Alana will take you home here tomorrow on our wonderful version of High Heat. She'll see you then.
There is a speed bump on the front. There is a speed bump on the front. There is a speed bump on the front.